The true heiress's counterattack. At 15, I learned I was the real heiress, swapped at birth. My biological parents would secretly watch me at school, but their overwhelming affection for the fake heiress, Seraphina, made them fear her falling ill if they brought me home. They even kept the truth hidden from her. It seemed my well-being without them was enough for them to simply forget their own daughter was living elsewhere. It wasn't until I turned 25 that they finally came to claim me. Standing before me, my biological parents wept, pouring out years of regret. They believed it was time I knew the truth and had a chance to build a relationship with my birth family. I was 25, having just completed my master's degree with honors. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, I was assured a job offer from a prestigious corporation. Alternatively, I could choose to study abroad, pursuing a doctorate in a developed country. With my academic prowess and sharp mind, any path I desired was open to me. My future promised to be boundless, brimming with incredible opportunities. I had long since matured, past the stage of needing unconditional love or financial support from parents. Yet, seeing their tear-filled, red-rimmed eyes, I remained silent, unable to utter a single word. In the end, I decided to follow them to their home. The Chu family's residence was truly magnificent, vast, and imposing. The unfamiliar mansion, coupled with the excessive emotions of these newly met parents, made me feel incredibly awkward and uncomfortable. Here, I came face to face with the person who had lived my life, occupying my place for 25 years. Seraphina Chu cowered behind Liu Chu, her face a mask of panic and fear. She was frail and thin, her skin an unnatural, lifeless pale. Her delicate frame seemed as though it might shatter with the slightest touch, stirring pity and a desire to protect in anyone who saw her. "Evelyn, this is your younger brother Leo and this is Seraphina," Mrs. Chu introduced. I gave a slight nod, remaining silent. I didn't miss the fleeting, wary glance in Liu Chu's eyes. Clearly, he wasn't welcoming my arrival. Compared to a biological sister he'd never met, his bond with Seraphina Chu was undeniably much deeper. I understood that. Anyone in his situation would react the same way. Noticing my cool indifference, Mrs. Chu sighed. "Evelyn, don't blame Seraphina. Her health hasn't been good these past few years. All of this was our decision." I had known about Seraphina Chu's existence much earlier. About 10 years ago, Mrs. Lee had directly told me I wasn't her biological daughter. Instead of shock, a vague, long-simmering suspicion within me felt confirmed. Mrs. Lee and Mr. Liu were simple, rustic villagers, small, stocky, and often sickly. I, on the other hand, had long limbs and was half a head taller than them. Moreover, I rarely fell ill. We were entirely different. From appearance to demeanor, we shared no similarities. Seeing my calm, almost cold demeanor, Mrs. Lee slapped me several times, hitting me hard. She cursed at me relentlessly for a long afternoon. From her terrible insults, I gradually pieced together the truth. Her biological daughter and I were born in the same hospital, a regrettable mix-up when the nurses swapped us. Her real daughter had been taken to the Chu family home. It wasn't until Seraphina suddenly contracted a severe illness, requiring a blood transfusion, that tests revealed she didn't share a blood type with her parents. That was how the truth was uncovered. After many inquiries, Mr. and Mrs. Chu finally sought me out. At the time, we all believed the Chu family would swiftly come to take me home and reunite with their family. No biological parent wouldn't long to be with their child. Even Mrs. Lee, who had once cursed me without mercy, felt the same. She, a woman with strong patriarchal beliefs, still wished for her biological daughter who had been swapped to return to her side. Mrs. Lee and I both eagerly awaited the Chu family's arrival. Throughout that long, arduous summer holiday, I often sat at the village entrance, waiting. Everyone who passed by would tease, "Oh, look, waiting for your rich parents to pick you up. What an ungrateful wretch, raising a wolf with white eyes." But an entire, seemingly endless summer holiday passed, and no one came for me. Gradually, I understood. Perhaps it was the long distance. From that bustling city to this impoverished village, the journey was truly too far. "I'm sorry, I truly didn't mean to take your place. Evelyn, hit me to vent your anger?" Seraphina Chu suddenly stepped forward, clutching my hand, her voice trembling as she pleaded for forgiveness. Before I could even react, Liu Chu swiftly pulled her behind him, shielding her. "Sister, being swapped at birth isn't your fault. You don't need to apologize to anyone." Tears streamed down his face, his gaze fixed on me with fierce determination, as if he wouldn't let it go unless I forgave her. Mrs. Chu, distraught, wiped away the tears rolling down her cheeks. Mr. Chu sighed, remaining silent. They were waiting for a reaction from me, a sign of acceptance. Perhaps they hoped for a faint smile, a dismissive wave of the hand as if nothing had ever happened. But the truth was, this incident, this pain, this wound, absolutely could not, be easily dismissed. I allowed a faint, humorless smirk to touch my lips, then looked directly into Seraphina Chu's eyes. If you're so idle, perhaps you should pay Mrs. Li a visit. She misses you dearly. The moment these words left my mouth, Liu Chu instantly erupted in anger. He lunged forward, standing protectively in front of Seraphina Chu, his eyes blazing with defiance and fury. He challenged me. Evelyn Chu, what do you mean by that? Who doesn't know Mrs. Li is an old-fashioned, patriarchal woman beyond compare? Why would you make my sister go back there? Seeing Liu Chu's face turn crimson with rage, I couldn't help but chuckle. So, even they admitted that Mrs. Li was a cruel woman, burdened with outdated, misogynistic beliefs. I was assigned a room on the 4th floor of the house. Though not overly spacious, the meticulous care in its decoration was evident. A pink princess bed dominated much of the space. The dressing room was also painted pink, and even the curtains were a vibrant shade of rose. It was identical to the naive prose I had penned in a 15-year-old essay, My Dream House. I couldn't recall the emotions with which I had written about that pink princess room, but one thing was certain. That tiny dream had long faded during the arduous years of waiting in vain. Mrs. Chu stood silently at the door, her eyes filled with anticipation and a hint of eagerness to please. I knew she wanted to see me surprised, delighted, or at least a little moved by her efforts, but I couldn't manage it, not even a pretense. I walked over, took down the curtains, then the bedspread, carefully folded them and placed them in the wardrobe. "Evelyn, didn't you love pink?" she asked. "I haven't liked pink for a long time," I replied, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. Mrs. Chu hadn't even considered whether a 25-year-old woman would still like pink. She also hadn't considered that even if I did, I might not want a room transformed into such a kitschy pink world. She was wholly immersed in her self-created role of making amends to her lost daughter, a role she played only to soothe the gnawing guilt and debt in her heart. Liu Chu appeared unexpectedly from somewhere. My actions seemed to have wounded his pride. He clutched the bedsheet in his hand, his eyes burning with anger. "Evelyn Chu, do you know how long Mom spent preparing all of this?" I looked up at him, my voice cold. "No, I don't. Please don't act as if we owe you something, all right?" "It's not our fault you were swapped at birth." I found it amusing, so I retorted, "So, it's my fault." As soon as the words left my mouth, the room fell into an unsettling silence. Mrs. Chu started to sob again. Liu Chu's face was incredibly complex. I wasn't at all like what they had imagined. They had assumed I would yearn for their affection, that just a little compensation would bring me to grateful tears. But when they discovered I wasn't so easily swayed, they grew angry, feeling humiliated and foolish. I picked up the bedsheet and promptly ushered them out. That night, I entered the Chu family home, a place I had yearned for throughout 10 long years. Yet I tossed and turned, unable to close my eyes. The next morning, I woke very early. I stayed in my room, quietly arranging the necessities for the day. Not long after, a knock echoed at the door. Seraphina Chu stood outside, holding a glass of milk, a placating smile on her face. "May I come in?" I nodded, then casually shut down my open laptop. Seraphina Chu placed the milk on the table, then openly began to meticulously examine my room. "Evelyn, do you like the decorations I chose for you?" Her boastfulness about being the mistress of the house was so obvious it was irritating. Seeing my silence, Seraphina Chu suddenly giggled. Her face was no longer pale and weak like yesterday. Instead, it was filled with provocation and triumph. The weakness in her eyes had vanished, replaced by soaring arrogance. "Evelyn Chu, do you know why you were brought into this house?" She winked mischievously, the corner of her lips curving into an even more pronounced smirk. "Actually, I've known about you for a long time. The first time Mom and Dad were going to Liangshan to bring you back, I poured cold water over myself all night. The result? The next day I had a 40-degree fever and had to be hospitalized. The second time they planned to get you, I slashed my wrist." She then held up her pale, slender wrist, where a rough, terrifying scar was visible. At that moment, Mom and Dad held me tight and said I was their only daughter. From then on, they never mentioned bringing you back again. Honestly, compared to Evelyn Chu, I think Lucy Zhao suits you better. Seraphina Chu's voice was light, but every word she uttered felt like a knife piercing my heart. I looked up at her, a bitter smile gracing my lips. The next second, I delivered a resounding slap across her face. 3 slaps, into which I poured every ounce of my strength. Seraphina Chu stumbled and fell to the ground, clutching her face, an expression of disbelief on her features. Having been pampered and cherished like a delicate egg since childhood, she had never once been struck. "Lucy Zhao, are you insane?" I remained silent, offering no response. Instead, I abruptly bent down, my hands tightening around Seraphina Chu's neck, pushing her forcefully towards the window. The majority of her body dangled precariously in midair. Outside the window was a breathtaking scene of a forest of pristine white plum blossoms in full bloom. The pure white of the plum blossoms fiercely contrasted with Seraphina Chu's pale, ashen face, as if she were suffocating, creating a beauty both fragile and heartbreaking. Her usual arrogant, provocative expression had completely vanished, replaced by absolute terror that consumed her entire face. I leaned close to her ear, whispering in a chilling tone, "Tell me, if I let go now, would you die? And if you did die, would your parents hold me accountable?" Seraphina Chu struggled wildly, her throat attempting to emit meaningless gasps due to lack of oxygen. Before she completely lost the ability to breathe, I abruptly shoved her onto the floor. Regaining her breath, she gasped heavily, tears and snot streaming uncontrollably, smearing her face. She trembled incessantly, unable to utter a single coherent sentence. I nonchalantly wiped my hands as if I had touched something filthy, then picked up the glass of milk she had brought and drained it in one gulp. "Get out." After Seraphina Chu left the room, no one dared to disturb me for the rest of the morning. It wasn't until noon that a maid came to invite me for a meal. In the spacious dining room, only Mr. and Mrs. Chu were already seated, waiting. The moment I sat down, Mrs. Chu eagerly filled my bowl with food. About halfway through the meal, Mr. Chu sharply put down his chopsticks, breaking the silence. "I hear you and Seraphina had a bit of a disagreement." I calmly wiped my mouth with a napkin and nodded briefly. "Yes." He seemed slightly surprised by my composure, but offered no reprimand. "You've just come home. It's understandable Seraphina isn't used to it yet. You 2 sisters will get along in time." The dining table fell silent once more. After we finished eating, Mrs. Chu suddenly smiled and said, "Evelyn, perhaps you don't know this, but our family and the Song family have been close for a long time. When I was pregnant with you, I discussed an engagement between you and their youngest son with Mrs. Song. Now that you're both grown, it's time to settle this marriage." She spoke with eager anticipation. "Coincidentally, your father and I are both busy this afternoon. Why don't Ethan take you out for a drive and get to know each other?" The smile on my lips abruptly faded. So they were already this desperate. Because Seraphina Chu didn't want to marry Ethan Song, they thought of me, their newly recognized biological daughter, as a substitute for this political marriage. So this was the true purpose of bringing me home, of raising me. I scrutinized the varied expressions on Mr. and Mrs. Chu's faces. Finally, I broke the silence. "I can agree to this marriage." Mrs. Chu seemed flustered, hastily waving her hands in denial. "What are you saying? We just want you 2 to have a chance to get to know each other." Before she could finish, I coldly cut her off. "But I have conditions." They exchanged glances, subtly letting out sighs of relief. Compared to me making no demands at all, they preferred that I did. But before they could fully exhale, I bluntly stated my requirement. "I want 5% of the Chu family company's shares." "Chu Group." My icy, sharp voice echoed through the dining room like an ice block hitting the table. In a flash, the dining room fell into an absolute, suffocating silence. Mrs. Chu couldn't believe her ears, stammering, "Evelyn, don't joke like this." "I'm not joking," I affirmed with certainty. "If you want me to marry into the Song family in place of Seraphina Chu, then let's exchange it for shares in Chu Group." Clang, Mr. Chu suddenly slammed his hand on the table and stood up sharply. "Replace what? You are our biological daughter. This engagement was always meant for you." His presence was powerful, his angry face intimidating. But I wasn't afraid of him. I smiled, looking directly into his eyes, and slowly said, "Mr. Chu, my household registration book only has 1 page." Mr. and Mrs. Chu stared at me in astonishment. "My household registration book only lists me. Apart from a vague blood relation, they and I currently have no legal ties." I pulled out my laptop and calmly opened the documents I had prepared that morning. At 18, I was admitted to the finance department of an Hawk University in Hong Kong, achieving the second highest score in the entire province. In my third year, I was retained by the university to pursue a master's degree directly, and I just graduated this year. During my graduate studies, I used my scholarships to make 18 investments, all of which were profitable. One of them increased 67-fold. This is a list of all the awards I won throughout my academic career. I continued to explain, this is a recommendation letter written by my supervising professor. I pointed to a section of text. And these are the international projects I participated in. Mr. Chu intently watched the video playing on the screen, his expression contemplative. They had never truly understood me, nor had they ever bothered to learn about me. Before my return, they had deluded themselves into believing I was just a country girl, uneducated, timid, weak, or perhaps unruly, hot-tempered, or even worse. That out of overwhelming gratitude for entering the Chu family home, I would be reserved and cautious in every action and word. But they never imagined I could be so calm and composed, neither ashamed of my background nor elated by my new status. On barren land, it is impossible to cultivate a pure narcissus. Instead, one will witness the vigorous growth of a resilient weed. My transferring my household registration to the Chu family, or even accepting a political marriage for the family's benefit, is negotiable. But I have one condition: to own a share of the company commensurate with my position as a daughter of the Chu family. Mr. Chu's gaze lingered on me, a flicker of undisguised admiration in his eyes. This was the first time he truly saw me as a daughter, a genuine member of the family. A daughter who had developed freely, grown in her own way, yet proved her excellence, even surpassing the expectations he held for his carefully groomed son. A powerful emotion welled up within him. Just then, Mrs. Chu's voice, tinged with hesitation, broke through. But how can a daughter be given shares? I understood the mindset of the Chu family very well. Mrs. Chu herself had sacrificed personal happiness for a commercial marriage. However, she viewed it as good fortune, a positive arrangement. In her eyes, a daughter's role was simply to wear beautiful dresses, live a life of leisure, be pretty, and be protected. Mr. Chu quietly glanced at her, then stood up and invited me to his study. In the quiet space of the room, he meticulously turned through each page of my profile, reading carefully and thoroughly. Finally, he spoke, promised to give me a chance to prove myself. Ethan Song had a strong aversion to arranged marriages for commercial purposes. If you can make the boy sincerely agree to this marriage, I will give you the shares. He implied that personal charm and the ability to communicate and interact skillfully in relationships were also valuable assets. That afternoon, I had my first meeting with the man destined to be my husband. Ethan Song leaned against the glass frame of the greenhouse, seemingly engrossed in Mrs. Chu's conversation. He wore a baggy hoodie and shorts, looking no different from a college student skipping class. A permanent, inexplicable smirk played on his lips, giving off an air of arrogance and nonchalance. Hearing my footsteps, Mrs. Chu smiled and introduced, "Ethan, this is Evelyn, the Chu family's daughter. Why don't you take her out for a bit this afternoon, get to know each other?" Ethan Song quietly observed, assessing me from head to toe. After a few polite words to Mrs. Chu, he extended his hand towards me. "Let's go, Evelyn." I subtly avoided his handshake, simply offering a gentle smile in response. "Then I'll trouble you." Ethan Song's car, like him, bore the strong imprint of his personality and distinct haughty attitude. It was a vibrant orange convertible, free-spirited and full of character. I wasn't familiar with the roads of Jing City, so I didn't know where he intended to take me. A while later, the car stopped in what appeared to be a chaotic and dilapidated neighborhood. Ethan Song turned off the engine, then looked at me, a half-joking, half-serious smile on his face. "I'm taking you to the most famous place in Jing City." Ethan led me into a private room in a noisy bar. The thick smoke in the room made me frown in discomfort. As soon as we entered, several people immediately stood up to greet him. "Second young Master Song, you're finally here. And this lady is?" Ethan Song glanced at me, then sneered, "My new pet." His friends immediately seemed to understand, some even teasing me. "Please, have a seat, Miss Pet." I narrowed my eyes, watching Ethan Song settle casually onto the sofa, lighting a cigar with nonchalance. He closed his eyes, savoring the pungent smoke, not even sparing me a glance. I understood perfectly well. This was a deliberate attempt to assert dominance. He wanted to use this method to make me willingly cancel the engagement. It was a childish tactic, but the awkwardness and discomfort they expected never appeared on my face. I smiled, walked up to Ethan Song, and tilted my head, asking, "Second young master Song, what kind of pet am I that you're raising?" Only then did he open his eyes to look at me, his gaze full of mockery. As if deep in thought, he slowly uttered 3 words, "A golden sparrow." In the very next second, under the astonished eyes of everyone in the room, I, that little golden sparrow, picked up the crystal ashtray on the table and brought it crashing down on Ethan Song's head. Whack! Fresh blood immediately gushed from his forehead, staining a patch of his hair red. Ethan Song slumped onto the sofa. The crystal ashtray seemed heavier than I had anticipated. The noisy room suddenly fell into a chilling silence. I calmly sat down, looking him straight in the eyes. The corner of my lips curved into a cold smile. "What now?" Clang! A shrill cry suddenly rang out from behind. I turned and saw Seraphina Chu, who had appeared at the door of the room at some point. She seemed to have just coincidentally passed by, accompanied by a friend. As if forgetting the morning when I had almost strangled her, Seraphina Chu rushed forward and pushed me away. "Evelyn Chu, you're too much. Bullying me is one thing, but how could you treat brother Ethan like this? If I hadn't happened to walk by and see this, Mom and Dad would have been deceived by you. I'll tell Mom and Dad everything." With that, she hastily turned and shook Ethan's Song. His head was already dazed from the blow, and now being shaken vigorously only made him dizzier and more uncomfortable. "Stop! Stop shaking me." Seraphina Chu awkwardly released his hand, then stood up, facing me with a furious expression. "Do you understand the ties between the Chu family and the Song family? If anything happens to Ethan Song, are you capable of bearing the consequences?" I burst out laughing. "I do understand, actually. Oh, right, I should thank you. If you hadn't scorned him as an illegitimate son with no future, how would I have had the chance to be recognized by the Chu family?" As soon as I finished speaking, Seraphina Chu's face immediately paled a few shades. She looked from Ethan's Song to me. Finally, her initial embarrassment transformed into burning rage. "Don't talk nonsense. It was clearly you who stole Ethan's Song from me." I tilted my head, raising an eyebrow provocatively. "Oh, really? If I gave him back to you, would you dare take him?" Seraphina Chu was completely speechless, unable to utter a word. Everyone understood her thoughts perfectly. Ethan's Song understood even better than anyone. "Enough!" Ethan's Song abruptly stood up from the chair he was sitting on. The hand that had been covering his head was now covered in fresh red blood. He shook his head vigorously, his dark eyes scrutinizing and suspicious as he looked at me. "Are you really Evelyn Chu? You haven't been swapped again, have you?" Meeting his still bewildered gaze, I smiled gently. "Ethan Song, I'm giving you 2 choices now. One is to actively ask your family to cancel this engagement. The second is to obediently follow me to the hospital to have your wound bandaged." Hearing this, his face darkened. "What if I don't want to choose either?" I shook my head, bent down, and picked up the broken ashtray from the floor. "That choice isn't available here." At the hospital, Ethan's Song winced, trying to endure the pain as the nurse applied antiseptic. In the treatment room, he completely ignored Seraphina Chu's presence. After all, I had only wounded his head, but Seraphina Chu was the one who had mercilessly trampled on his self-esteem. After the medication was applied, he stared at me with a confused expression. "Are you really a daughter of the Chu family? You haven't been swapped again, have you?" "I've been swapped once already," I replied. "Ah, I forgot," he said after a moment, his tone a little hesitant. "So, could I be swapped a second time?" Finally, after the nurse finished bandaging his wound, I looked him directly in the eyes and said, "Ethan Song, are you content to live your entire life waiting for others to grant you favors? Are you truly willing?" "What do you mean?" he asked, bewildered. I looked at him as if he were an idiot. "Clearly, you are both descendants of the Song family, yet you can only be a pawn in this political marriage. Ethan Song, isn't your sister-in-law just an ordinary person? If we marry, you can legitimately contend for power. I will use the Chu family's shares to help you." I continued to analyze. "I don't think you want to be just the second young master Song your whole life, do you?" With each sentence I spoke, Ethan Song's gaze deepened further. "Why do you want to help me?" I gently patted his still somewhat naive face. "Because I, Evelyn Chu, will never marry a useless man." On the way back to the Chu family home, Ethan Song remained silent the entire journey. Not long after we arrived, my phone lit up with a friend request notification. "Hello, my fiancé." The engagement party and welcoming ceremony were combined. The Chu and Song families hosted a grand banquet at the most renowned manor in Jing City. Mr. Chu introduced me to each guest. This party also marked the beginning of a profound collaborative relationship between the two families. After the busy period of greeting guests, Ethan Song approached and stood beside me. The wound on his forehead had fully healed, leaving only a faint scar. He wore a meticulously tailored suit, his hair neatly slicked back, looking far more mature and composed than before. Ethan Song was already listed as an executive at Song Corporation, but had never actively worked. On this occasion, thanks to the arranged marriage, he proactively asked his parents for permission to work at a corporate branch to gain experience. Mr. Song, seeing his son finally showing initiative, agreed without hesitation. The current CEO of Song Corporation was Ethan's elder brother, Aaron Song. Rather than living cautiously under his brother's wing, Ethan preferred to go to a branch and be his own master. My views and his were completely aligned on this. After meeting a room full of guests with Mr. Chu, I finally exhaled in relief. There were too many guests today, not just business partners, but also numerous media reporters there to amplify the prestige of this intermarriage. I didn't expect that, after just a brief respite, I would see Leo Chu and Seraphina Chu walking towards us. It was unclear what new scheme these two siblings were hatching. They hadn't been seen since the beginning of the party. Mr. Chu had even sent people to look for them several times to no avail. Seraphina Chu wore a dazzling red dress that was incredibly striking, even overshadowing me, the main character of today's event. She approached Ethan Song and me, raised her wine glass, and offered a wistful smile. "Brother Ethan, congratulations." Ethan Song frowned slightly but politely clinked glasses with her. "Thank you." Suddenly, Seraphina Chu began coughing in fits. Leo Chu quickly rushed to support her. "Sister Seraphina, are you all right? Your health isn't good. Why did you push yourself to come here?" Seraphina Chu gently shook her head, slowly pushing Leo Chu's hand away, her voice soft but tinged with fragility. "Little Leo, if I couldn't personally congratulate Brother Ethan and Evelyn, I would regret it deeply." As she spoke, her eyes began to redden on the verge of tears. If my condition hadn't worsened, things wouldn't have come to this. Seraphina Chu's voice grew softer and softer, laced with pain and helplessness, drawing the attention of many guests at the party. With her frail, sickly figure and choked, ambiguous words, Seraphina Chu stirred speculation and vague pity from those around her. Soft whispers began to circulate. Even after raising her for 15 or 20 years, it can't compare to a biological blood relationship. Old Chu has treated her too well. How many of us would treat an adopted child so well? Even better than their own, perhaps? In the end, blood is always thicker than water. Family ties are something no one can change. Realizing that her words weren't having the desired effect, Seraphina Chu's face gradually paled, showing clear disappointment. Perhaps her words could sway the hearts of the younger attendees, eliciting sympathy and compassion. But in the eyes of the seasoned businessmen and elders present, it was only right and proper for the biological daughter to return home and enjoy the life she deserved. After all, they weren't wrong. Blood relations have always been the strongest, most sacred, and incomparable bond. Seeing Seraphina Chu's sorrowful face, Leo Chu gritted his teeth, struggling to suppress his rising anger. I noticed his hand clenching the pocket of his jacket. Immediately, the large screen behind the violin orchestra, which had been playing melodious tunes, abruptly changed. Instead, a shrill, vulgar cursing voice of a woman boomed through the speaker system. "You unwanted bastard, I'll beat you to death. What kind of distinguished heiress are you?" Everyone looked closely. This is the biological daughter of the Chu family, one of Jing City's largest business empires. Even your own parents don't want you. What's the point of living? Your mother has been freeloading off me for so many years. If they don't want you, I'll beat you to death today. The strange voice quickly grabbed the attention of the entire hall. On the screen, a short, plump, middle-aged woman was in a furious rage, continuously punching and kicking a girl of about 15 or 16. The video appeared to have been filmed quite a while ago. The image was somewhat blurry and shaky. The woman repeatedly swung her arms down viciously until the girl's face was covered in blood and bloodied bruises. Still not satisfied, the woman frantically tore off the girl's clothes. The thin t-shirt was violently ripped, exposing countless overlapping bruises on her skin. "You unwanted bastard, if no one wants you, then go with someone else. Go away, stop seducing my husband. Whoever wants her can take her." The middle-aged woman grabbed the girl's hair, pulling it back forcefully to reveal a face covered in blood and grime. That face, eerily, looked exactly like mine, like 2 drops of water. The entire hall suddenly erupted. Everyone kept looking at me, then up at the screen, comparing. Their eyes were filled with astonishment, pity, and even indignation. That video was taken during the summer holiday of my 16th year. Out of an overwhelming desire to meet Seraphina Chu, Mrs. Lee had taken me to Jing City. But after learning of her intentions, Mrs. Chu unhesitatingly blocked her number. Jing City was too vast, and without a specific address, Mrs. Lee had no idea where the Chu family lived. She believed that in big cities, news spread quickly. So, on the streets, she openly and brutally beat me just to lure the Chu family out. Initially, she only intended to force them to reveal themselves, but by the 3rd day in Jing City, after having spent a considerable amount of money without receiving any news from the Chu family, she completely lost patience. And then she unleashed all her frustration, disappointment, and resentment on me. That time, she truly wanted to beat me to death. The video ended, and the entire hall plunged into silence. The old wound was once again torn open before so many people in the cruelest way possible. Countless eyes, some pitying, some mocking, converged on me. Seraphina Chu, tears welling in her eyes, turned to Ethan's song. "Brother Ethan, I can't bear to see you deceived. Surely Evelyn has never told you that she has a slight disability, right? Her right ear can't hear anything at all." Slap. Mrs. Chu suddenly stepped forward and delivered a resounding slap across Seraphina Chu's face. The daughter she had pampered and cherished in the palm of her hand since childhood was being struck by her for the very first time. Seraphina Chu's eyes widened, unable to believe what had just happened. "Mom, you hit me." Mrs. Chu's tears flowed ceaselessly. She staggered a step, trembling as she said, "Don't call me Mom." After saying that, she left Seraphina Chu stunned, embraced me tightly, and sobbed like a child. How could my child be treated like this? How could she? "I was wrong, Evelyn, your father and I are truly sorry." Mr. Chu, the normally powerful man, bowed his head, concealing his belated repentance, silently wiping away tears of remorse. I was held tightly in the arms of the mother I had just reunited with. Now I only felt a pervasive numbness, my heart calloused. It was all too late, truly too late. For a very long time, I no longer needed their love or concern. If only in those earlier years, they had shown me even a little attention, paid heed to my life. Perhaps they wouldn't have been unaware of the dire circumstances I had endured, the pain I had borne alone. Mrs. Chu's emotions completely shattered. She couldn't suppress her sorrow and regret, forcing the grand welcoming and engagement party, which was supposed to last until late, to stop midway, to the astonishment of everyone. After reviewing the surveillance video extracted from the hall's camera system, everyone discovered an unbelievable truth. It was none other than the seemingly innocent adopted younger sister, Liu Chu, who had secretly uploaded the notorious clip to the projection computer, deliberately humiliating me in front of so many guests. In the spacious living room of the Chu family mansion, Liu Chu and Seraphina Chu, the 2 daughters considered family treasures, stood with bowed heads before Mr. Chu and me. I tried to remain calm, turning to ask Liu Chu, my voice cold and distant, "Have you seen that video?" He, with a stubborn and defiant attitude, retorted, "So what if I have?" Whack! The sharp crack of a wooden ruler echoed loudly. Mr. Chu, the father who always pampered and doted on his daughters, lost his temper for the first time, bringing the wooden ruler down hard on Liu Chu's thin back. "So what if you have? What's in your head, huh?" Mr. Chu yelled furiously, his voice trembling. "I know you don't like your sister, but she is your blood, a member of the Chu family. Today is her welcoming and engagement day, the most important day since she came home. Do you know how many eyes are on her? This isn't a personal matter, it's the reputation of the entire Chu family." He repeated it relentlessly, as if trying to awaken his defiant daughter. "Liu Chu, you're old enough, yet you still pull such foolish stunts. You disappoint me immensely." His voice choked with anger and shame. "Apologize to your sister immediately." Liu Chu pressed his lips tightly, looking dissatisfied and unwilling, adamantly refusing to utter a single apology. Seeing this, Seraphina Chu, the always cherished adopted daughter, quickly stepped forward to shield her younger sister. "Dad, it's not little Leo's fault, it's mine." But before she could finish, Mr. Chu roared in anger, cutting her off. "Apologize?" Seraphina Chu, despite always being loved, flinched back in fear at her father's wrath. Liu Chu gritted his teeth, forcing down his resentment, reluctantly uttering, "I'm sorry." In the end, Mr. Chu ordered Liu Chu to be punished by cutting off all his pocket money for 6 months. From beginning to end, he didn't say a single word to Seraphina Chu. It seemed his disappointment in Liu Chu overshadowed all other emotions. In the quiet study, Mr. Chu and I discussed how to handle the aftermath of the scandalous party. I calmly smiled, a smile devoid of emotion. Rather than trying to suppress the information, it's better to let the media report freely. After all, I was the victim. I did nothing wrong. I think we should seize this opportunity to establish my reputation and affirm my position within the Chu family. Mr. Chu nodded, pleased with my intelligence and composure. He thought like a true businessman. In his eyes, benefit always came first in every situation. After finalizing the media strategy, his gaze lingered on my ears. Before he could speak, I spoke first, my voice calm and decisive. "Father, the shares you promised me should be transferred now." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes scrutinizing and somewhat remorseful, but said nothing. Before I left the study with the share transfer contract in hand, Mr. Chu called out to me, his voice tinged with hesitation. "Can your ear be cured?" I maintained my cold expression as I replied, "It's permanently deaf." Before the study door closed, I heard him let out a faint sigh, a sigh filled with belated regret and irreparable sorrow. Stepping out, I saw Mrs. Chu standing by the door, her eyes red from crying. She looked at me with a cautious gaze, as if afraid to hurt me further. Before she could even open her mouth, tears silently fell. I nodded at her, a single nod devoid of any emotion, then squeezed past her and walked back to my room on the 4th floor, where I would face the next challenges and storms. In truth, at the time when I most yearned for parents, I had read many stories about real and fake heiresses, tales of hidden truths and swapped destinies. But in all those stories, there wasn't a single one where the biological daughter wasn't taken home. By 9:00 a.m. the next day, my name had soared into the top 10 hottest searches on social media. My first 25 years were thoroughly dissected, not a single detail overlooked. Netizens felt both pity and admiration for me. They called me the most tragic, yet also the most inspiring, true heiress. And once I was elevated, Seraphina Chu was, of course, dragged down. Her 25 years of living in luxury were mercilessly exposed. Designer brands, expensive supercars, travels checking in all over the world. Immediately, the phrase "cuckoo in the nest" flooded her personal pages, with criticisms, sarcasm, and indignation pouring towards her. Marketing accounts aggressively fanned the flames, pushing the intensity of the situation to unprecedented heights. I knew clearly that this was something Mr. Chu had tacitly permitted, a clever move to both protect the family's reputation and create a stepping stone for me into the upper echelons. Simultaneously, I officially started working at Chu Group, the nation's leading economic conglomerate. The share transfer contract he had previously promised had not yet been executed. Instead, he only submitted a transfer of 0.3% of the shares, a number far too small for what I deserved. I understood his intention. He believed I was still too young and inexperienced. Without clear achievements, even if he gave me all the shares, I wouldn't be able to stand firm in the company. Instead, I would become a target for the envious and jealous. In the eyes of many at the company, I was merely there in name, to add to the prestige of the Chu family's status. After all, I was already half betrothed into the Song family, an equally powerful clan, and had a younger brother who was the designated heir of the company. But those who underestimated me soon realized their mistake. Leveraging the strong familial ties with the Song family, I was put in charge of all collaborative projects with Song Corporation. Through each negotiation, Aaron Song, the promising heir of Song Corporation, gained no advantage from me. Instead, he had to make concessions on many important issues. In just 6 short months, I brilliantly secured contracts that led to an impressive 40% growth in total value for the company compared to the same period last year. During this intense, high-pressure phase, my time revolved almost entirely around the office. I dedicated most of my time and effort to work, rarely having the chance to return to the Chu family mansion. I vaguely remembered Mrs. Chu thoughtfully bringing lunch to my workplace for 2 consecutive months. But after that, I stopped seeing her. Casually glancing at the calendar on the wall, I was suddenly startled to realize it was already Zioonian, an important holiday signaling the approaching Lunar New Year. My phone vibrated, displaying a message from Mrs. Chu from that morning, asking if I planned to come home for an intimate family dinner. Due to my busy schedule, I hadn't had time to reply. After some thoughtful deliberation, I decided to put on my coat and leave the office. As soon as I arrived, I saw the Chu family mansion ablaze with lights, echoing with joyful laughter and chatter. A warm, cozy family scene unfolded before my eyes. Stepping into the dining room, I saw Mrs. Chu and Seraphina Chu gathered together, deftly wrapping delicate dumplings. Mr. Chu and Leo Chu smiled, helping with other small tasks. It seemed all the distance and simmering conflicts left over from the last party had completely dissolved into this cheerful atmosphere. However, my unexpected arrival shattered the warm and intimate ambience they had just created. Before anyone could process what was happening, Mr. Chu stood up, his voice somewhat stern. "You've returned at just the right time. Come up to my study for a moment." Since I officially joined the company, my relationship with Mr. Chu had transformed into a purely superior subordinate dynamic. He seemed very pleased with my enthusiasm and efficiency in the role of an employee. As for me, I never once brought up the so-called sacred family affection between us. Such a dry and pragmatic working relationship was, for both of us, probably enough to maintain this cooperation. This time, Mr. Chu calling me to his study was likely to discuss the IPO plan I had boldly proposed at the shareholders' meeting that morning. Chu Group was an old enterprise with a rich history and strong potential. For a long time, it had met all the criteria to become a listed company. Yet, over the years, while other competitors had successively listed their shares and then quickly fallen into bankruptcy, Chu Group stubbornly maintained its old-fashioned and conservative business practices, refusing to change or adapt to market fluctuations. In the quiet study, Mr. Chu's face darkened, showing extreme anger and dissatisfaction. All the documents haphazardly stacked on his desk were violently swept onto the floor. We had just endured a fierce and heated argument. I had not hesitated to tear open the conservative and cowardly facade he had meticulously maintained for so many years. Words no one dared to speak directly for years, I bravely uttered them all. But one thing was clear. Mr. Chu was not the type of leader capable of listening to and accepting dissenting opinions. Yet, that very outburst of rage only further proved his helplessness and weakness. He was old now, lacking the courage and strength to face new risks and challenges. Stepping out of the study, I quietly sat down at the dining table, my face betraying no emotion. Today, all the household staff had been given early leave to celebrate the new year. Mrs. Chu and Seraphina Chu were busy in the kitchen, preparing delicious dishes to bring to the table. Leo Chu sat next to me, secretly glancing at me, then hesitantly spoke after a while. "You must have been working very hard lately, haven't you, sis?" I replied calmly. "It's just normal." He pulled out a small, carefully wrapped box from behind his back. "Last weekend was actually your birthday." Looking at the small, dark velvet box, I paused slightly, an indescribable emotion swelling within me. I had never had the habit of celebrating birthdays. January 1st marked the beginning of the mistakes and tragedies in my life, but I still politely accepted the gift. "Thank you." Seeing me happily accept the gift, Leo Chu seemed a little excited. "I'll tell you a secret. Mom and Seraphina also prepared birthday gifts for you." As soon as he finished speaking, seeing Mrs. Chu and Seraphina Chu bringing out plates of hot dumplings, he immediately sat up straight as if nothing had happened. Mr. Chu glanced over at us, letting out a soft, annoyed HMPH. Mrs. Chu and Seraphina carefully arranged the dumplings on the table, then quickly went into the kitchen to retrieve 2 large shopping bags. Mrs. Chu affectionately handed me a striking orange bag. Inside was an expensive designer handbag worth 7 figures. "Evelyn, this is your first birthday since you returned home. I only wish for you to always be healthy and safe. From now on every one of your birthdays, I will always be by your side to celebrate you." An indescribable, choked feeling welled up inside me. I pressed my lips tightly, trying to suppress my emotions. I simply nodded slightly in thanks. Seraphina Chu, meanwhile, handed me a box wrapped in sweet pink paper. I couldn't guess what was inside. Leo Chu, unable to contain his curiosity, quickly snatched the box and opened it. 3 large capitalized words were clearly visible on the product packaging. Hearing AID, Leo Chu frowned in confusion. "Sister, why did you give her this?" Seraphina Chu stuck out her tongue, smiling brightly and innocently. "Everyone gives you frivolous and colorful things. I just wanted to give something truly practical and useful." "Evelyn, I researched this hearing aid thoroughly. Just wear it, I guarantee you'll hear as clearly as a normal person. I slowly took the hearing aid from Liu Chu's hand, pink, and if you looked closely, this was a custom-designed version, because no ordinary hearing aid would have the two words, Lucy Zhao, engraved on it, as if certain I wouldn't dare to make a scene in public. Seraphina Chu's eyes curved into a meaningful smile. This color suits you perfectly, Evelyn. Try it on. She was subtly reminding me that no matter how glamorous and dazzling I might appear now, no matter how proudly and confidently I stood here, it could never erase that disgraceful and shameful past. I also curved my lips into a faint smile. I threw the hearing aid and its box directly at her face without mercy. Why should I endure this humiliation? Why should I allow her the opportunity to provoke and insult me like this? Seraphina Chu clutched her face, a cry of pain escaping her lips. Mrs. Chu, her face filled with worry, immediately rushed to her daughter's side. Evelyn, no matter how dissatisfied you are, how can you lay hands on Seraphina like that? I narrowed my eyes suspiciously, questioning her sharply, engraved with Lucy Zhao on it. What do you mean by that? It was Liu Chu's turn. He quickly picked up the fallen hearing aid. After a careful inspection, he was horrified to notice the tiny inscription engraved on the bottom. His face changed color, and he stammered, "Sister, did you engrave the wrong name?" Seraphina Chu retorted with a cold, malicious tone, "No mistake at all. She is Lucy Zhao." Liu Chu couldn't believe his ears, yelling, "What are you talking about?" Seraphina Chu abruptly lifted her head, her eyes filled with hatred as if poisoned, fixed on me. "Am I wrong? Lucy Zhao, a country bumpkin like you, not content with staying in that village corner, still dreams of going to university? What makes you think you're better than me? Why didn't Mrs. Li just beat you deaf in both ears and be done with it?" The entire dining room suddenly became suffocatingly silent. Seraphina Chu's once beautiful face was now completely obscured by madness. Despite Mrs. Chu's desperate attempts to intervene, she couldn't control her daughter's outburst. Finally, even Mr. Chu couldn't keep his composure. He angrily delivered a thunderous slap across Seraphina Chu's face. Immediately, Mrs. Chu's pathetic sobs mingled with Seraphina Chu's insane laughter, echoing throughout the dining room, creating a chaotic, tense atmosphere. I bit my lip tightly, trying to suppress my emotions, picked up my coat, and prepared to leave. This ridiculous farce no longer held any interest for me. I didn't want to watch it for another second. But to my surprise, just as I reached the door, Mrs. Chu hastily chased after me. She tried to defend Seraphina Chu's actions in a voice full of urgency. "Seraphina, she's been ill for years, always living in extreme fear. She's afraid you'll come back and take her place. She's just so afraid of losing us, Evelyn. Don't blame her." I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Even after all this, she could still utter, "Don't blame her." All the suppressed emotions, accumulated throughout the long day, finally erupted. I looked deep into her eyes, each word I spoke clear and painful. "She's afraid of losing her parents. But what about me? What about me, huh? Do you know what I've been through? Do you know the hardships, the pain I've had to endure alone? Because she was afraid of losing you, my left ear is permanently deaf. 8 ribs were broken. Look at my nose bridge. It took 3 painful surgeries to fix it. Do you know what it feels like to go from ultimate hope to ultimate despair, over and over again? Do you know what it's like to not dare to blink, just afraid of missing even the smallest chance to see my parents again? No. Do you know what it feels like to see my parents secretly watching me, then choosing not to take me home because of her? Do you know what it's like to only dream of my parents coming to save me? You don't know. You don't know anything at all. 10 years. Exactly 10 years. Because of her, and because of you, every single day of my life was worse than death." Mrs. Chu stared at me, her eyes wide, seemingly unable to believe what she had just heard. Mr. Chu and Liu Chu, who had also just caught up, stood frozen behind her, completely unresponsive. They had never seen me like this. I was always calm, cold, indifferent to everything. I wasn't supposed to be frantic, screaming, tears streaming down my face like this. I wiped away the tears falling down my face, then suddenly smiled. So, the things buried deep within my heart could never truly be let go. I finally dared to admit to myself that I hated them, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that I would never, ever forgive them. Leaving the Chu family home, I saw Ethan Song's car parked right outside. At some point, snow had begun to fall. Ethan Song stood there, frozen in the snow. White snowflakes clung to his hair and the shoulders of his coat. Seeing me emerge, he asked nothing, simply saying softly and gently, "Want to come over to my place for dumplings?" The Chu Group's IPO plan was officially put up for discussion. Within the company, two opposing factions immediately emerged. One side fully supported the listing, believing it to be an opportunity for development. The other argued that the risks were too great, potentially leading to severe consequences. Amidst the enthusiastic newcomers and the seasoned veterans, subtle conflicts began to surface like fierce undercurrents. Finally, Mr. Chu himself made the ultimate decision. The company would proceed with the IPO. On Ethan Song's side, developments were also progressing rapidly. Unlike Chu Group, Song Corporation had been under Aaron Song's control from a very early stage and always received absolute support from all shareholders. However, when one person holds absolute power for too long, it's inevitable that dissenting voices will emerge, people who disagree with his management style. And those people were precisely the targets Ethan Song was secretly winning over, gradually solidifying his position. Currently, the Commercial Cultural Tourism Complex, a collaboration between the Song and Chu families, had officially broken ground. The project was divided into 3 phases, and the contract for the first phase was complete. This was an extremely important project, the very key to my standing firm in this battle. I had to closely monitor the progress of Chu Group's IPO while simultaneously assisting Ethan Song in infiltrating the Song Corporation system, taking control step by step. Ethan Song completely trusted my abilities. Many important projects and development strategies were calculated and outlined by me on his behalf. From someone who often worked overtime alone, we gradually became teammates, working together through the night, day and night, to achieve our common goals. Phase 2 of the large-scale cultural, commercial, and tourism project officially began after a year of detailed preparation and planning. However, at this crucial moment, an unexpected incident involving Ethan Song occurred, threatening the overall progress of the entire project. I had to stay up all night in the waiting lounge of a luxury hotel belonging to Song Corporation, my heart filled with worry. At 9:00 a.m. that day, a crucial meeting was scheduled, one that would determine the success of Phase 2, and Ethan Song could not be absent under any circumstances. When the clock struck 8:10, Ethan Song finally appeared. He emerged from the elevator looking disheveled, his clothes rumpled, and his expression clearly flustered. The moment he saw me, his first reaction was to hastily pull up the collar of his shirt, trying to hide the lingering marks of intimacy on his neck. "Evelyn, he stammered, unable to finish his sentence. I handed him the neat suit I had prepared in advance. "Change your clothes," I said coldly. Then I instructed my people to deal with the problem, the girl waiting in a room upstairs. Ethan Song hung his head, looking exactly as he did when admitting mistakes in the past. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. I remained silent, not saying a word. That very day, I decided to return to the Chu family home. I hadn't been back since Zaya-Onian, the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month. Liu Chu was traveling abroad. Mrs. Chu was at the nursing home, caring for Seraphina Chu, who was going through a difficult psychological period. In the large house, only Mr. Chu remained. I carried 2 important documents. I pushed the share transfer contract for the company towards him. "Father, the company is about to go public. I need these shares. We, the Chu family, must maintain absolute control and cannot allow anyone to take over." He didn't react, just silently looked at me. I then pushed another document towards him. It was an agreement to establish a family trust fund, a fund designed to secure the lives of Liu Chu and future generations. My gaze was firm as I looked directly at Mr. Chu, asking seriously, "Father, with Liu Chu's personality and abilities, is she truly suited to manage the company? Or should she be free to pursue what she loves, and I will ensure her and future generations a prosperous life, free from worries about food and money?" Surprise clearly replaced his previous calm expression. I wanted him, in a family still heavily steeped in feudalistic, patriarchal ideology, to hand over all the shares to me. After a moment of silent thought, he suddenly burst into hearty laughter. "Indeed, you are my daughter, Chu Hanghai," he said with pride in his voice. From that day on, I officially became the largest shareholder of Chu Group, holding the highest power in the company. The stock market listing was very close, and I became busier than ever. In recent days, Ethan Song had tried to meet me multiple times, but I had flatly refused them all. Half a month later, under my leadership, Chu Group officially listed in Hong Kong. All company employees were given time off to celebrate this momentous event. Tens of thousands of people simultaneously applauded the success, a truly memorable moment. Since the founding of Chu Group, only I, Evelyn Chu, had the honor of achieving this glory, taking the company to new heights. After completing the IPO, I rewarded myself with a short vacation to relax and recharge. When I returned to work, it was time to prepare for the contract signing for Phase 3 of the cultural, commercial, and tourism complex project with Song Corporation. Prior to that, because the company was about to go public, I couldn't allow any errors, no matter how small. Therefore, I had temporarily put aside resolving personal grievances with Ethan Song. But now, the time had come. I had secretly collected all of Ethan Song's scandals and internal manipulation within Song Corporation over the past period. No one understood what he had done better than me. Sitting opposite me in the negotiation was Aaron Song, Ethan Song's older brother, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. I dangled a small USB in my hand, smiling faintly. Inside this is a list of all of Ethan Song's confidants, along with evidence of his misconduct. As long as Song Corporation withdraws from Phase 3 of the project, it will belong to you. Ethan Song and I officially called off the engagement, ending all romantic ties. That evening, Ethan Song stormed into my office, his face filled with rage. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Evelyn Chu, were you ever truly sincere with me?" I slapped him directly across the face without hesitation. Looking at him with a faint smile, I coldly replied, "What are you to demand my sincerity? Don't delude yourself." Someone like me, who has endured so much hardship and difficulty, how could I rely on love and salvation from others? A man involved with countless women, do you think you're worthy? Ethan Song completely crumbled, losing all will. From now on, he would no longer hold any real power in Song Corporation. He was merely a discarded son of the family, nothing more. But what did any of that have to do with me? I only cared about my goals. 1 year after Chu Group's successful IPO, Seraphina Chu passed away at 44. This time, she was truly dead. Since the last time I saw her, her mental state had always been very unstable, frequently showing negative symptoms. I heard that a day before she passed, Mrs. Lee and Mr. Liu had visited her, which likely caused negative psychological impact. I did not attend Seraphina Chu's funeral. Mrs. Chu was immersed in grief over the loss of her daughter. After the funeral, Mr. Chu took her abroad to soothe her sorrow. Leo Chu, after graduating from university, chose to study abroad in Germany, seeking new horizons. Everything had ended. I gathered sufficient evidence to sue Mrs. Lee and Mr. Liu for their past abuse. Even after many years, the teachers and neighbors from back then were still willing to testify about what I had endured. In the end, they both faced imprisonment, paying the price for their cruel actions. As for me, from a poor girl for whom even leaving Liangshan was a luxury, I had steadily climbed to a position respected by tens of thousands. It seemed that what didn't kill me only made me stronger. Ethan Song's perspective asterisk. That period, looking back, felt like a fleeting dream, a momentary illusion. Before then, my life had been dull and meaningless. But in those years, for the first time, I tasted the sweet, tempting flavor of power, a strength I had always yearned for. And all of it I owed entirely to Evelyn Chu. She was a true heiress, yet she emerged from an unexpected, impoverished village, a place I had never set foot in before. Previously, everyone in the family and company only knew me as second young Master Song, a name tied to the overwhelming shadow of my older brother. But now, everything had changed completely. People respectfully began calling me CEO Song, a title brimming with authority and prestige. I no longer had to live in my brother's shadow, no longer had to endure unpleasant comparative gazes. Even my parents, who had always underestimated me and seemed to never care about my feelings, began to notice me, gently asking how I was doing and if work was going well. I began to immerse myself, indulging in the feeling of boundless power it brought. I gradually spent less time with my old party friends. All-night revelries became tiresome. Evelyn Chu was indeed an extraordinarily capable and talented woman. The resilience, strength, and pride radiating from her captivated me. A unique beauty I had never seen in any other woman before. It was the first time I felt that the commercial arranged marriage my family orchestrated wasn't entirely a bad thing. But perhaps she was too principled and arrogant. I also had my moments of failure. I also needed comfort, solace, and encouragement. Yet, she would only coldly demand that I sober up, like an emotionless machine, helping me analyze situations, propose solutions, and recover. I didn't just need a brilliant strategist to help me with my career. I needed a real girlfriend, someone who could share the joys and sorrows of life. I sought out my familiar bar. I no longer remembered how long it had been since I tasted the pungent flavor of fine whiskey and the characteristic bitterness of Cuban cigars. Evelyn Chu didn't like those tastes. She always said they were too strong and unpleasant. I felt as if I was taking revenge. One cigar after another was lit and then extinguished. One glass of wine after another was filled and then emptied. Non-stop. I told myself I wasn't drunk, I just wanted to release the pressure in my heart. A young woman sat down beside me. She was a friend's younger sister, whom he had just introduced. I heard she was a university student, very young and innocent. Her voice was soft and gentle as she advised me not to drink anymore, saying it would harm my health. I poured all my worries and frustrations onto her. She stroked my head, gently saying, "Young Master Song, you're doing so well." I don't clearly remember how I ended up in the hotel with her, but I distinctly remember one thing. She leaned into my arms, praised me incessantly, leaned on me weakly, encouraged, and motivated me. She was nothing like Evelyn Chu, a complete contrast. Waking up the next morning, I was aghast, realizing what I had done an unforgivable mistake. I panicked, terrified. Evelyn Chu was a woman who couldn't tolerate even a speck of dust in her eye. She was always straightforward and decisive. If she found out about this, what would happen? I asked myself many times, would she be disappointed in me? Would she cancel the engagement that both families had painstakingly arranged? But very quickly, I knew the answer. She wouldn't do that. She maintained a terrifying calmness. She sat silently in the hotel lobby, waiting for me. When she saw me emerge, she didn't say a single word of reproach or resentment, only coldly ordered her people to deal with the girl upstairs, ruthlessly and indifferently. She knew exactly what I had done up there. Everything was within her control. She continued, as always, to take me to meetings, handle work, calm and cold, as if she didn't care about what had happened. But I noticed the usually perfectly ironed hem of her coat had mysterious wrinkles that day. A rare sign of the turmoil within her. She didn't expose me in front of everyone. She saved my face. Foolishly, I thought it was because she loved me, because she still cared about me, and out of love, she forgave my mistake. I regretted it, deeply regretted it. I wanted to make amends to her, to start over, but I couldn't even meet her face. I longed for her after the company listed on the stock exchange, waited for her to return after her few days of vacation. But what I received was a blunt cancellation of our engagement. She was truly cruel. She took all the people I had painstakingly cultivated, those who should have served me, and handed them all over to my brother. Everything I had built seemed to turn to smoke. I wanted to find her, wanted to ask her if she had ever loved me, even just a little, but in the end, I couldn't utter any words of love. What I did say were only bitter, resentful words. She looked at me with disdain, coldly saying, "Just looking at you makes me feel dirty." She said, "What are you to demand my sincerity?" I returned to being the second young master Song, wandering through all-night parties, seeking oblivion in alcohol. My parents never again mentioned handing over power to me. It seemed they had completely given up on me. 6 months later, I got engaged again. This time to the youngest daughter of a major shopping mall chairman. Like me, she was merely a pawn in the family's hands, serving their interests. She was arrogant, hot-tempered, and simple-minded. Even if Evelyn Chu used just one finger, she couldn't compare, but I could only marry her. That was my fate. I had imagined countless times what if I hadn't betrayed her. If I had kept myself, could Evelyn Chu and I have married? But life has no what-ifs. After we married, we often argued. 2 years later, at an evening party of the Shen group, I saw Evelyn Chu again. She was still as radiant and captivating as ever. It was as if her mere presence made everyone around her just a backdrop to her beauty and success. In that hall, where merchants and the elite gathered, the wine glass in Evelyn Chu's hand was always held higher than everyone else's, symbolizing her unparalleled status.